This episode is dedicated to Lane for becoming our newest Southpaw supporter and helping to make this project possible.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pride Never Die. We're in the first episode of the new year, and I feel like it's been forever since I've recorded. And here today with me to talk about a little bit of what they do in personal training and exercise as a queer individual, working mostly within the queer community, and a little bit about self-care. I have Stevie.
Hi.
And I just want to start by giving you a little bit of time to introduce yourself, what it is you do.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Stevie. I use she, they pronouns. I'm based in Oakland, California, although I'm originally from the UK. And I am a strength coach, a powerlifting coach, an Olympic weightlifting coach, and I am an Olympic style weightlifter myself as well. And I mostly serve the queer community, both in Oakland, and I do a lot of online coaching as well.
How long have you been coaching other people?
At least 4 years. I kind of lose track. I feel like the pandemic has just made my timeline squiffy and nothing really makes sense anymore. But I started coaching more or less right after I moved to the US. So yeah, 4 years.
Okay. And how long were you training in weightlifting and stuff yourself before coaching?
I came into strength coaching initially because I was a runner and I kept injuring myself. So I started going to the gym a couple of times a week. I was doing a lot of self-teaching, looking things up on Reddit, watching YouTube videos. And the more I did it, the better my running got. But also the more I was why am I running when I could be inside picking up heavy things? This is way more fun. So I just kind of gradually started moving towards weight training. And then it was after I moved to the US that I got into powerlifting. And after about 18 months powerlifting, I was actually, I'm ready for something like the next challenge. And that's when I started Olympic weightlifting, which was about end of 2019. So I've been coaching general strength and fitness for a little bit longer, and then more recently added on the weightlifting.
And how do you feel the coaching and everything within the queer community, how has that been for you? Do you find that you enjoy doing that more as a queer individual yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm able to relate to all of my clients. I become such great friends with so many of my clients. I just feel really good about being able to offer these services to a community that I'm a part of, so I can see what is needed in this community and I can see better how to help people because I'm on the inside. So it feels really good in that way. And also and I'm very fortunate to be self-employed, so I get to choose who I work with. And that's a huge, huge, huge privilege. I wasn't in that position for a long time, and I had a lot of negative experiences with clients. And now that I'm in this position where I can choose who I work with, that basically never happens. The only clients I've had to fire were men, and now I can choose not to work with men if I don't want to. And that feels really good.
I bet that is, definitely an advantage over being employed by someone else.
Yes.
I also was interested in a little bit of what you talked there and how you began getting more interested in weightlifting and strength training, being that you kind of were treating your own injuries and things from being a runner. And I was interested in that because I also want to talk to you today about things like self-care, which is, caring for yourself so that you can continue caring for others. And just want to talk about how much of also with your clients, how many of them are coming in wanting to get stronger because of injuries they've sustained, either in athletics, in a workplace, and things like that.
I would say that I don't work with too many people with specific injuries, but a lot of people come to me and they're experiencing small annoying things, like a lot of lower back pain, and especially post-pandemic, a lot of people, their activity level has massively decreased. A lot of people are spending a lot more time at desks and sitting down than they used to. So I'm seeing kind of a trend, a lot of people are going through the same sort of things. I wouldn't say that injury, like recovery or like focusing on that is like my forte per se, but one thing that I am really into is always offering modifications. So I do a lot of work to make sure that my practice is size inclusive and fat positive. So I've done courses on just various ways to like modify things. So if I do have somebody who has some kind of limitation or an injury, or if they're in a larger body, or if they're disabled, like I'm able to provide as many different options so that they can still get that type of movement in.
I think that's really one of the most important things that you can provide to any community, really, is being able to be there and be able to offer modifications for people that are still even possibly on the fringes of that niche community.
Absolutely. I think one of the markers of a good coach is their ability to make whatever it is they're coaching accessible to whoever it is they're coaching.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And coaching martial arts, that's something that I always want to be able to do, is make sure that anyone who comes in the door can participate. And, it might take time to work on finding what that is, but if they're willing to work on it with me, I'm willing to take the time to make it work for them.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's probably not a common attitude within martial arts from my limited experience.
I feel like it can be in some circles, but it certainly isn't in the larger community at whole.
Yeah.
Which I would even say I feel like that's probably something that's similar between just martial arts and strength training and personal fitness. Is there's definitely a larger structure where in the mainstream it's not as usual to see modifications for people going through disability. Not as much of the fat positive training.
Yeah, you're right. I think that kind of toxic masculinity, like bro-y sort of culture is coming to mind. I see that both in lifting and like my understanding of mainstream martial arts, which I'm not a martial artist. I know very little, but as like an outsider looking in, like that's the impression I get.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why it's exciting to talk to you, because you're doing something different.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. This and Southpaw has been a great help for me and for a lot of people, just having any sort of community to build around that's not completely toxic.
Yeah, it's really important to find community around the thing that you do, whether that's a sport or exercise or whatever it is. It can be a real game changer.
What has your experience been like building community around just like your clientele and your weightlifting and just that sort of part of your life?
I would say on the whole, it's been pretty great. When I first moved out here, I fell very quickly into a vegan gym community because I've been vegan for quite a long time. And that initially was a very, very positive experience. It did not end well. The leadership of that gym were sorely lacking, and there was a lot of issues that kind of came to a very public and that's what I'm looking for. They came to a head pretty dramatically. So I kind of got a little bit burnt, and I've been sort of hesitant about joining a new community because of this experience. I've kind of like dipped my toe in and just like, oh, I don't know. But instead, I've kind of been able to create my own little community. And I do mostly one-on-one training. It's not like I'm running a gym where people are coming and going all the time and I'm seeing a bunch of people. I see the same like 10 to 15 people every week, usually for long periods of time. But just like through my Instagram and through like knowing a lot of similar people who I bring together in like social events sometimes, it's just, I feel like I've created my own little bubble of anti-diet, like LGBT, really awesome people. Yeah, I feel very happy with my little community.
Good. Yeah, I think that's something that you'll often see, is that if you start taking the steps to make more space for community like that to exist, people will just kind of naturally be drawn to it, because if you're looking for something like that and you're willing to put in the work for it, there are going to be other people that were wishing it was there as well.
Yeah, I like that. And I kind of, I don't know, I like being, in some ways I feel I'm a very extroverted person. I tend to like have a lot of friends. That's something that I just really enjoy, meeting new people and creating those relationships. And I sometimes I feel like I'm at this point where I know so many people, and I can like, if one of my friends is like, oh, I really need this, I'm like, oh, I know someone who can help you with that. And like, I love being able to like foster community even within my community and like bring different people together. It's something I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the best things about being someone that's trying to make something or, provide a service like that, is getting to see just kind of that extra benefit of your work that you might not have anticipated when you started.
Mm-hmm.
To come back to a little bit about some of the things involving self-care that you and I had talked about before this interview, something I was really interested in is different ways that you, as a coach, motivate yourself to be there to motivate other people.
That's a good question. Sometimes I find when I'm lacking in motivation, it's easier to gas somebody else up and cater to their needs and see what, how I can help them get going. And that in turn sort of gets the ball rolling for me a little bit too. So I think there's a little bit of just like, that's just the kind of person that I am, like helping other people in that way gives me the energy that I need. But I think also this last year or so, especially since going self-employed, I've been much better about my boundaries. And so I find that I get into situations where I just don't have the energy that I wish I had for a client. I don't get into those situations very often anymore because I have really strict boundaries about like when I'm working, when I'm not working. And when I'm not working, I am generally able to turn off from work. I have, it's kind of tough when you work from home and you run your own business and it's kind of your whole life. And like your hobby is also your business. There's a lot of overlap there. But I've worked really hard on those particular boundaries. And I feel like they are really great for my mental health, which in turn is really great for my ability to have that energy and hold space for people further along the line. It's kind of like a pay it forward system. I pay myself by giving myself a 3-day weekend, and then I have more energy for the people in my life who I care about.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think, like you talked about, having that sort of personality already where it's kind of easier to motivate others when you're not feeling as motivated yourself does help build like a natural coach in you. And then definitely being able to like have firm boundaries about your work life, about what you're doing, and be able to kind of give yourself that recharge time is, I imagine, just invaluable in being there to coach other people.
Yeah, it really is, especially coming from where I was before the pandemic, where I was coaching for a gym, I was trying to run my own business, and I was also working at a coffee shop like 20 plus hours a week. So I was just like juggling so much, and I didn't have the option of, if I had someone approach me about training, I didn't have the option of saying no because I just like needed the money, I needed the experience. So it's definitely a nice change. And I think having been in that situation where I basically felt like I couldn't have boundaries and now being in the situation where I can, like those boundaries feel even more important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's never a bad thing to be able to reinforce your boundaries because, like you were saying, it's just being able to reinforce those boundaries allows you to have a better mental health experience overall and a better foundation to be there for people.
A note to our loyal listeners: if you love the Southpaw Project, please support us and help us get paid for our labor by financially supporting us on Patreon. This will give you access to exclusive bonus content, as well as our private chat group on Discord. Show your Southpaw solidarity by supporting us at patreon.com/southpawpod.
With having people that aren't really interested in training for competition, what are ways that you help those people maintain motivated? I feel like it's very important to have things that are outside of competition and things like that that can motivate you, but I'm curious as to what your like system is for helping people like that find motivation.
Yeah, I mean, it depends a lot on the person, and I think there's a lot of skill in just being able to meet someone new and like kind of figure out, okay, like does this person need like a weight goal to focus on? And when I say weight goal, I'm talking about weight on the bar. I don't do any body weight stuff. Or are they coming to me because they have another sport that they do? I work with a lot of climbers and hikers, and at one point I was training several roller derby skaters. That word always trips me up because I grew up in the UK and there's a town called Derby, but it's spelled Derby. And every time I see that word, I'm like, which one is it? Is it Derby or Derby? And then I screw it up anyway. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast? I should have asked earlier.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, great. Book.
Good.
Just get it out there. Okay, sorry, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I've worked with several like roller derby athletes. And so I really like working with people who have their other thing that they do, because then it's so easy to be like, oh, how did you feel at training this week? And like they see and they feel the difference generally very quickly. And so that is just really good for motivating people. And even the people who don't have anything that they do outside, a lot of the time, it's easy to kind of find something that they're excited about. So if they start off and they're just like really stoked about squats and they're having a really great time, it's like, well, how about we aim for this number on your back squat? And that can be like a really good driver for some people. Other people just prefer to go on how they feel. So I ask a lot of questions. I think sometimes I get sick of hearing myself ask the same questions. I wonder how my clients feel. I think it'd be funny if they all got together and just like teased me for asking the same like 5 questions over again. But I like to ask a lot of questions. I like to do a lot of check-ins, both like when someone first shows up, like how is your body feeling today? And usually those kind of things sort of give me the kind of info that I need to help figure out what is going to support this person best. If they come in, they're excited to like lift some heavy shit, then like, okay, cool. Maybe we need a deadlift goal, or maybe we start talking about a powerlifting competition. Or if they come in and they had like a really stressful day, and maybe the goal is to, when they're leaving, be like, hey, how are you feeling now? And they're like, oh, I feel great. Sometimes that's the goal.
And something else I was interested in is, as a coach, have you ever had any clients or anything that you've had to almost kind of pull back in a way?
I would say that those are the rarer types in just the niche that I work with, the types of people I train. A lot of the time I work with people who need someone to like have their back. Occasionally I meet people who are just like super enthusiastic and they want to go, go, go. And there's a lot of kind of gentle reminders that like you have to earn heavy weights. You can't just like jump into it. That's how injuries happen. Those are the people who get all of my like, okay, we're doing tempo squats today. All right, we're doing pause squats today. Those are the people who get all of the really tough, like speed, like opposite of speed work, like the slow stuff, to try and kind of help them get out of the habit of going too fast. Yeah, a lot of reminders and just educating. My goal when I work with clients is never that they're going to work with me forever. It's always that I'm going to give them the information that they need to do the things that they want to do to feel good, and then hopefully help them feel confident enough in going to do that too.
Yeah, I think that's something that's a little bit more common training with specifically like different pro fighters, as they'd like to have kind of a tendency to want to work so hard that they'll just kind of work like straight through a brick wall if they could.
Yeah, I've seen that attitude in people. Haven't worked with too many fighters. I worked with somebody who was in the military. He had a similar kind of attitude of like, very much like, no pain, no gain. Like, I do not endorse that at all. And in fact, I will have serious conversations with anyone I'm working with who I think is pushing through too much or like trying to do too much. I have had that conversation. A different client who is someone I've worked with for a long time, but he comes to mind. There was a time when I had to be like, hey, you need to slow down. Like, this is my professional opinion. You pay me to be here to remind you of this shit. Like, you're going to hurt yourself. And like, sometimes that can be a really humbling experience, but that's like also part of why people hire a coach, is to have that outside set of eyes. Like, I have a coach. Sometimes my coach tells me to go down and wait, or like back off a little bit. And this is part of the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think definitely just as people, we all kind of have times where we might just be doing too much in general.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're constantly pushed to do too much in every aspect of our life. Like, we're just scroll Instagram and everybody's lifting heavier than you and better than you. And so there's always this like, I mean, maybe that's just my Instagram feed, but there's always this kind of like external pressure to like be better, push harder, grind more, like do the most all the time. And I like to, sometimes I post on Instagram and I'll post my lifts and be like, I half-assed it today, or like, I skipped all my accessories today. And I sometimes wonder if people follow me and are like, does this bitch ever actually do her full workout? Or like, is she like, like always putting it in? But I like to try and be really real that like you're not going to push super fucking hard all the time, and you're not supposed to push really hard all the time. And there's lots of very good, valid reasons why you should sometimes skip your accessories or like, don't push the intensity.
Absolutely. And I also want to go back because you mentioned there of social media involving more of like self-care and taking just a little bit more care of yourself and your mental health. I know we have had conversations about how hard it can be feeling like part of your job is to post on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask if you have any different techniques and ways that you've been able to extend your boundaries that you have for your clients into your social media as well.
I think I got really I did like, some business courses and like studying. And I got really into this mindset of like, I have to be posting consistently and just like obsessed with this idea of consistency. And I was really good about it for a while. I was like, posting pretty much all the time on schedule, like churning out the content machine. It was working. My followers was going up. People were reaching out about coaching. But I just got to the point where I was just like, I just can't be bothered anymore. It's just, it's really exhausting. It's really tiring. And so I'm kind of taking a little bit of I'm still on social media. I still post to my stories. I still like use Messenger and like chat with people, but I'm kind of taking a little bit of a break from social media. And it's interesting to see that through posting on my stories I'm still like making all of the same connections. And I'm not having those like anxiety spikes that I used to have. Like if I posted something that was like a little bit controversial, I'm like always worried that like, someone's going to be in my comments, like complaining about my armpit hair or like, or telling me that my lifts are bad or something. And so there's none of that like anxiety anymore, which has been pretty good for my mental health. And I feel like I have so much more time in the day when I'm not making content. I have so much more time in the day. I mean, it would take up hours of my week. And I would like to get to a point where I can start posting again. But I also think I need to stop trying to like post to somebody else's schedule like 5 fucking times a week. Like, geez, no. 7 even. 5 was the compromise with this business coach I talked to. She was like 7 days a week. I was like, I can't. Sunday's the Lord's day, okay? Like
Not for posting.
Only thirst traps on Sundays.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, so I'm trying to get to a point where I can kind of come back to creating content with a little bit less urgency. I think that's been a big thing for me in a lot of aspects of my life is I feel this big sense of urgency. A lot of people feel it when they start training too, and they start weightlifting. They feel this urgency of like, I have to get to like X number of pounds, or I have to be able to like master this lift. And there's no urgency.
Right.
Like, it's okay to just be like, this feels really important right now, but in the grand scheme of things, it's actually not. And I can afford to just like take it a little bit slower. So I've been trying to do that. And that's nice.
Yeah, it sounds nice. I can't imagine posting 7 days a week at all on anything ever.
Oh, it's so hard. I ran out of things. I talk a lot. I'm a very talkative person. And even I was like, I'm running out of things to talk about.
And like, I think it's just a good thing to remember too, that like, if you're trying to match up with an algorithm, that an algorithm is inherently just not a person and not how a person thinks or operates or what you need to do. Like, you're going to burn yourself out just trying to keep up with something that isn't a person.
Yeah, I can't be the algorithm, the mighty shadow of the algorithm. I try not to worry about it. I used to and be like, oh, I have to use X, like this amount of hashtags, and I have to use like this type of hashtags. And now I'm just like, I don't know, hashtag whatever. I just the first 5 that come to mind, and then I'm like, I'm done. That's fine. Good luck.
It's perfectly fine amount of hashtags. And during the pandemic, with all of the uptick and everyone being inside and you doing some online training, what has that been like for you? Like, what's your average kind of work like with someone if they're just doing online only?
So during the pandemic, I was doing a lot of Zoom classes, which I really enjoyed. And it was a really great way to stay connected to my community. In the end, I stopped doing them in the summer of last year because as the vaccines rolled out, less people were interested in doing Zoom stuff. A lot of people were pretty burned out on it, including myself. And, if you have like 2 pairs of dumbbells at home, there's only so many things that you can do with them before, like, for a lot of people, it's like, okay, like, I would like to spice this up a little bit now. So I stopped doing the Zoom classes, and I do still have clients that I see on Zoom, but mostly they're folks who are international. So I have a couple of British people and people with chronic illnesses or disabilities who might need the flexibility between like in person and online. That's something that I do Zoom for. But my online coaching, I describe it as solo but supported. It involves very little time on Zoom. Generally speaking, I'm providing the programming, which is delivered through an app on my client's phone. And then they follow it. They do it on whatever day works for them, whatever time works for them. They don't have to work around my schedule. They can kind of have flexibility there. I have my clients record videos of them doing movements. So whether that is a back squat in your gym or a goblet squat in your garage or like a bodyweight squat or wherever you're at. And then they upload it, and a couple of times a week I go in and I watch everybody's workouts and I give them feedback and send them little videos. So it's very similar to like having that personal training experience, but it's just a little bit more flexible for scheduling and time.
Okay. Yeah, that seems like a very helpful way to run that.
Yeah, and it's been a little tough with gyms opening and closing because some people start working with me because they really want to get into barbell lifting, and then their gym will close down and we have to like pivot, and it's like, okay, well, now we're doing a dumbbell program. Oh, you don't have dumbbells? Okay, now we're doing a body weight and bands program. So there's been a lot of like pivoting very quickly, having to adjust, having to get really creative. That's one of the best things about the pandemic in my experience. It's been like, okay, we need to do some kind of pressing movement. What is the heaviest thing you can hold safely with one hand to like not drop it on your head? And, like, we've had like wine bottles, cast iron skillet, like anything, anything that you can keep a sturdy grip on that's not going to put a hole in your ceiling. It's been really fun to kind of put like play back into strength training in a way. It gets sillier when you're chasing your dog down because you need to do your next set of squats and you needed a 35-pound weight, and that's your dog. So it's been very fun.
Good. Yeah, that's very funny. It just reminds me of like being, I think, a teenager and having my grandpa tell me that I should do curls with milk gallons.
I used to work at Starbucks, and my friends would tease me, but I would do that.
Yeah, it works. It's not.
Yeah, there's a heavy gallons. I mean, mostly I would do it like if, like a cute girl came into the lobby and I was just like, okay, I just gotta get a few curls in, make sure my t-shirt sleeves are tight.
Yeah. And counting really loudly, like at very high numbers.
I also like to do the presses. If I was like taking milk from the back into the front, I'd make sure to get a few like shoulder presses in on the way. My coworkers thought I was very obnoxious, but it was fun for me.
Yeah. And I think sometimes there can be a little bit of fun in being that obnoxious person for someone else. Like, I
agree. I always aspire to be the broiest person in the room, but I think I can get away with it because I'm 5'3" and have bright pink hair.
It does help. Makes it more charming than broy.
That's what I'm going for.
Right.
A charming bro.
Yeah.
Someone, my partner once described me as a broy princess, and I was like, yeah, you nailed it. That's exactly right. Yep.
It's a very good aesthetic. I don't know why Disney hasn't already capitalized on this.
Well, if they do, they're going to owe me some royalties.
That's true. How do you think being a coach for other people has affected your own experience training?
I'm much nicer to myself now that I have more experience working with other people. My therapist asks me on almost a weekly basis, and how would you talk to a client who is dealing with that problem? And on an almost weekly basis, I glare at her and I'm just like, shut up. Stop it. But I mean, it's a good question, and it's one I do ask myself a lot. And I notice that I have a lot more compassion for myself as an athlete and as a person since working with more people. It's when I was less experienced and newer to fitness, it was very easy to see all of these like Instagram athletes and kind of put them up on a pedestal and compare myself to them. And like, I don't see them taking days off, and they're doing, double day workouts and 6 workouts a week, and they're training in 2 sports. And like, I need to be doing all of this stuff as well. And through working with more and more people, I see like awesome badass people achieving awesome badass things like all the time, and most of them are not doing any of that like fucking intense Instagram fitness person shit. So it's been, I don't know, it's been really reassuring to kind of like experience other people's journeys and see how many similarities there are. Like one thing I say a lot is that this is often not linear. Like you can be on the best strength program in the world, but you can't control for every factor. And like at some point, it's going to feel like you're going backwards or that you're stuck. And everybody goes through that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what like stage of their lifting journey they're at. It doesn't matter if they're like a competitive weightlifter or if they're just like lifting because they don't want to have low back pain anymore. Like I see that at every level.
Yeah, I think that that's also something that I kind of connect with just general advice from training anything, and then also back to like self-care is that feeling of you can end up going back and forth in those places and need to do different things. Like there have definitely been times where I've been doing really well for a while and been able to take care of a bunch of other people because I was in a good spot, and then that might change. And it's not like a personal failure to move backwards into that and to have to take more care of yourself or anything. It just is a part of living and the process that we all go through.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not linear, and there's always going to be different seasons and times when you're going to have more energy to provide, and times when you're going to need someone else to like look after you. And I think the more I'm in that role of like helping other people, the easier it becomes to also like ask for help myself when I need it too.
I definitely agree. I think trying to be there to help other people and help them learn through different things has definitely made it easier for me to ask for help and just ask for more explanation from things. Being someone that's like instructing people and taking the time to answer things for them makes it way easier to just kind of get over that anxiety of like, will someone think I'm dumb if I have a question? Because no, of course you have questions.
It makes sense.
And I also try to remind myself a lot that not only do I deserve the care I give to other people, but like we've talked about a little bit before, just receiving that care that you need just in turn allows you to give better care to the people you're trying to care for anyway.
It totally does. I feel like Coach Stevie is now like, I don't know how into like therapy and parts work you are, but me and my therapist, we talk a lot about parts, and I feel like Coach Stevie is this like very distinct part that I have, and I have conversations with her when I'm like trying to make a decision. So a situation that's happened this weekend, I told you about this a little bit before we talked, but me and my friends, we like to wrestle sometimes, and none of us are martial artists. We're just like some hot queers who like to fight each other.
Yeah.
So we had a little bit of a wrestling match this weekend, which I won. I did lose to one person, but I'm claiming the ultimate victory because the person who beat that person, I also beat them. So I think I won. I'm very proud. I'm very competitive. I don't know if you can tell. But so we had a little wrestling competition, and I jacked up my neck. I was not ready for this at all. And so for the last like couple of days, I have been in too much pain to lift and to train. And like my sides are really sore, my upper back is sore. Like I feel like I've been hit by a bus. And part of me is like, get back in the gym. Like, come on, you little pussy, go lift those weights. And then the other part of me, like Coach Stevie, is like, wait a second. Like, is this how you would talk to any of your friends or any of your clients who, like, if they came to you with this situation? No, you'd high five them and tell them, great fucking job and your win. Like, go take an Epsom salt bath. So I am able to kind of like coach / parent myself way better now that I've like really developed that coaching voice that I have with my clients, and now I'm able to like turn it on myself a little bit. And so I took 2 days off, and now I can finally look left again, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's underrated ability.
Truly it is.
Yeah, I think that's definitely just really important to get like used to, is having that ability to talk to yourself internally and kind of calm yourself down the way that other people that in your life you might talk to them, and being able to kind of take that step back from being emotional in a situation.
And I'm someone who needs a lot of reassurance. I'm a very anxious person, so it's not always feasible for me to like message my weightlifting buddies and be like, "Oh, is it okay if I skip my workout today?" So it's good to have developed that strong internal voice of being like, oh, when I'm asking myself, should I skip or should I not, have that coach person who can step up and be like, okay, well, let's look at the data here. Like, you slept like shit, you feel like shit, you haven't eaten, all you want to do is lay on the couch and smoke weed. Like, you're probably not going to have a good workout, so why don't you just skip it? And that's what I did. Well, I did it today and I felt good.
If you love the Southpaw Project, please support us and help us get paid for our labor by financially supporting us on Patreon. It'll help us supplement the cost of running this project, the incredible time and energy we put into it 7 days a week, and you'll be giving us some breathing room, not only to juggle Southpaw with our day jobs, but also to expand Southpaw into other areas. Show your Southpaw solidarity by supporting us at patreon.com/southpawpod.
Yeah, and I think that's also part of it, is developing that experience and knowing when you're right, when you're telling yourself that you should rest, and also knowing when you might just be kind of looking for a way out of things, which I think just that's time will teach you that.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily like the idea of like looking for a way out of things, because I know in myself, like when I'm looking for a way out of something, that's because something is wrong. Like whether it's sleep, food, hydration, I'm depressed, I've been inside too much, like whatever it is, if I'm looking for a way to get out of my training, something's going on. And sometimes it's physical. Sometimes it's I don't like my workout. Sometimes it's I don't want to commute to the gym. Like there can be a lot of reasons for that. But I think people are so quick to be like, oh, I'm always trying to get out of this. That means I'm bad. Like I'm lazy, or like I suck at this, or I'm never going to have the discipline. And it's like, no, like it's probably something else going on. We're often really hard on ourselves and we judge things as like flaws in our character when it's actually probably a result of our circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think the number one cause of me starting to feel bad and feel like I want to not do something, or like feeling like I'm being a lazy person and therefore bad, is that I just didn't get enough food that day. Just for whatever reason, if I've like skipped a lunch, or if I didn't eat a big enough lunch, or I didn't eat a big enough breakfast, or whatever, I think that's usually the number one culprit between me feeling like bad, and it has nothing to do with me as a person. I just didn't eat.
Yeah, I have that one a lot. And I have recovered from an eating disorder, and I work with a lot of people who have recovered from eating disorders or who have had struggles with disordered eating. So that is definitely a piece that I come back to a lot. And especially with women and folks who have just been socialized to like try and be small their entire lives, we're just like constantly pushing off our hunger cues and like constantly finding reasons not to eat or to eat less. And so it's so common when people start eating more and like heal their relationship with food that they actually gain an interest in movement again. Like if you've been restricting and under eating for like most of your adult life, yeah, of course you don't want to fucking do anything.
Right.
Like you're exhausted. Like what energy would you use to go and do this workout you want to do? Like that makes sense you would struggle. That's why I'm a big proponent of intuitive eating and healing your relationship with food. And I don't do any kind of intentional weight loss or any of that kind of work with the people I coach.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, is even just in the way that jobs are structured. A lot of my experience with developing bad eating habits and things came from working jobs where even though I was in a kitchen, I was on the clock for 12 hours at a time and with no time to like stop and eat.
Oh yeah. I worked in bars and restaurants.
Yep. And that's exactly what I was going to say, is that like those jobs and things like that, they kind of bring those unhealthy eating habits out of people who are susceptible to them.
Yes, absolutely. I would say some of the worst eating habits I've seen were when I worked in bars and restaurants, and the people who work in kitchens. And it's hard because you're working during the time, like regular meal times, so it like totally throws you off, and then you're on your feet, so you're super active, and it can provide opportunities to skip out on meals if that's what you're trying to do. It's a very difficult industry for folks with food issues.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything else you would like to talk about while I have you here?
We could maybe go into like specifics of self-care and like what self-care can look like, possibly, because I feel like it's now this like umbrella term of that kind of means like bath bombs and, you know.
It's kind of important to talk about the root of it, and it kind of relating to specifically the Black Panther Party. A lot of members developed their idea of self-care as the times and things you do, like to care for yourself, to then be there to provide care to your community, because they were doing things like providing food in their neighborhood, providing like the first free school lunches, doing a lot of like helping people who are at risk of being evicted, who need places like that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew the Black Panther Party did all of those things. I didn't know that the kind of root of this modern idea of self-care came from there. It's interesting.
Right.
Now I'm even more mad about all these white women posting about their fucking bath bombs.
Right. Yeah. Now the modern idea that's trying to be commercialized of self-care as, you know, buy something for yourself.
Yeah, I feel like it's being repackaged as like less self-care and more of a way of numbing out. You know, like your boss treats you like shit and you hate your job. Well, just take a bubble bath and eat Chinese food. It's like, well, that's not actually gonna. Sure, it's gonna make you feel better in the moment, and that's very important. But I don't know. It just feels like we're kind of being sold this idea, and it just feels like a bit of a sham.
Yeah, that's why a lot of times when I think about self-care for myself, I think about the times that I am able to motivate myself to do whatever exercise I can make myself get through. I can, you know, the times that I'm willing to make myself like a nice meal that's actually good for me.
Yeah, it's me like scowling as I'm making dinner, like, oh, self-care.
Yeah, right.
Instead of just ordering takeout again.
Uh-huh. Me doing all of my dishes.
Oh, let's not go too crazy here. I haven't got that far in my self-care journey yet.
Right.
I have a magnet in my garage gym that says heavy squats equal self-care. And it's a good reminder, because sometimes heavy squats are self-care and sometimes skipping the heavy squats is self-care. It's kind of a nuanced thing that
Right.
requires a lot of self-knowledge and self-experimentation too. I think it's totally okay to like skip a workout and then the next day be like, you know, I probably could have done that workout. Like that's fine. And especially if you're someone who's newer to fitness in this journey, I think it's really easy to like overthink things like that sometimes. We're like, at the end of the day, like tomorrow's a new day, next week's it's a new week, next month's a new month. If this is something that you're committed to for the long term, which you really should be, then it doesn't matter if you skipped a workout that maybe you could have done, or, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think like it's also the thing with self-care, like as that being part of it, it's like sometimes you will just be able to find those times where you might have somewhat lied to yourself at some point, or just not known your own energy levels and patterns well enough, where you might skip a workout thinking, okay, well, this will give me, I'm going to skip this, but I'm going to have more energy for like other things I'm doing for people, so it'll be fine. And then you find that you skip that workout and then you still don't have any extra energy. Like you said, that's just a lot of figuring things out over time.
Yeah. And that's totally okay if that's what happens. Like, our bodies are not machines, you know. We can't like code the way they're supposed to react to things. You can do all of the right things and still wake up tired as shit tomorrow, you know. Like it's unfortunately not that simple. So it's important to be able to have that kind of self-awareness and self-understanding and like self-forgiveness too. If you're constantly berating yourself and beating yourself up, it's gonna hold you back. You're not gonna enjoy the process. Like, you're just gonna feel like shit all the time. Gotta be nice to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Easier said than done.
definitely easier said than done for most people. And I think like it's important to remember that knowing your limits and knowing to watch yourself and make sure you don't get too burnt out on anything is also an important part of community care, because the care that you give to your community will wane if you're not taking proper care of yourself, if you're not actually doing the things you need to do to recharge to be able to be there for them.
That's true. And that's not to say that every act of self-care needs to be so that we can continue to be of service to our communities. We also deserve self-care just because we fucking deserve it, just as people who exist. Like, you deserve to have your needs met and be comfortable and happy and well-rested and all of those good things, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to remember that the things that we deserve are not rooted in the things that we do. Like, they're just inherent, that you deserve to be able to rest and recover from the way you live your life.
Mm-hmm. And you deserve to be able to skip a workout if you don't feel great, and without needing to like feel guilty about that. And you can feel confident that that is, that is self-care. It's not finding excuses or being lazy. It's listening to your body. It's taking your needs into consideration and doing what you need to be happy in the long term.
And yeah, I mean, almost always, if you end up doing these things and just kind of letting yourself just not do them when you don't want to do them and be there for them when you do, you'll find that like your training as a whole, your experience will just get better.
Taking the pressure off. I find when I set myself like really hard rules or goals, like, okay, you're going to work out 5 times this week. I get to like day 3 and I'm like, ugh, 5 is so many. I don't want to do 5. And it becomes like way harder because I've set this kind of pressure on myself. So these days I try and like aim a little bit lower a lot of the time. I'm like, okay, you have 5 workouts, but let's try for 4. Like 4 is good. Like more often than not, I end up getting 5. Like taking the pressure and the shame out of the equation is often a really good way to actually get something done. Like when you give yourself permission to not do it or to fuck it up. That's a big one for me. I'm a perfectionist and I'm always scared of messing things up. And sometimes it just gets to the point where I'm like, I can't even try something new because I'm so scared that I'm just going to be really bad at it. I'm going to mess it up. And so one of the reasons I started Olympic weightlifting is because I was really bad at it. And so I was like, well, I just feel like I need a change, and I'm really scared of doing this thing because I know that I'm bad at it, but why don't I just do something that I'm bad at for a while and just like give myself permission to fuck it up? And now I'm pretty good. I think I'm okay at it now. I mean, I just qualified for the American Open Series, so I can like go compete at the Arnold in March. That's like pretty cool. So like it's cool to be bad at stuff. That should be my slogan.
Yeah, that should be. It's a good banner to have in your gym.
Yeah. It's cool to suck.
It's cool to suck.
Yeah.
Suckers rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely like one of the just biggest keys to being able to learn and grow anything, is letting yourself just kind of be bad at it for as long as you're bad at it.
Yes, absolutely. And that counts for like learning a new skill or a new sport. But also, if you're someone who's trying to get into a regular exercise routine and you're having trouble with consistency, like that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're lazy or whatever. You're learning something new. You're building something new, and it's okay to be bad at it. And like you might be bad at it for weeks at a time, but if you keep trying and you stay curious and like don't pile a bunch of shame on yourself, you're probably going to get better at it.
Yeah. Yeah, being really negative about it and being really hard on yourself is just going to kind of like attach those negative feelings to that memory of the time that you did an exercise, and then just going to kind of feed into that negative feeling about exercising in general.
Yeah, and it can really ruin things for us. I know a lot of people, myself included, who have like fairly negative opinions of like running. Running's a big one because it's someone that everyone always goes to when they're like, I'm going to lose weight. They're like, okay, I'm going to stop eating and go running every day for 10 hours. And so many people have this really negative association with running and we really don't like it. Running is awesome. Like running is like so freeing and fun. Not for everyone, but like it really can be. And I feel like so many of us just have our relationship with it like ruined because we have such negative associations. And it's just common with exercise in general. Like so many people are traumatized from their PE classes or like early attempts at weight loss when they went to a gym and were like screamed at by an instructor for an hour. You know, like so many people are just like, oh, I don't like exercise. I don't want to do that. Like, or they're anxious about it because of these like horrible negative associations.
Yeah, I struggle a little bit with running. Just not my favorite thing.
It's not for everyone.
I think I just struggle with remembering how I'm supposed to be breathing while I'm doing it.
Breathing is very hard and not as intuitive as people will make it out to be.
But there definitely have been times in my life where there were stints where I couldn't really do any sort of physical exercise whatsoever. And then some of the first things I did after feeling like I had a little bit more agency over my body at that point was go on some somewhat long runs, for me at least. And it's a really good feeling to be able to feel like you can run for a while.
Yes, it's a great feeling. And if you're someone who's had a tumultuous relationship with it and you're able to heal that and come back to it, it can be really freeing. I spent a lot of my teenage years getting up at 5 a.m. to go running. Like, I just for silly reasons, I wanted to go early so that no one would see me because I was like kind of embarrassed about it. And I just really didn't enjoy the experience. It was purely just because like, oh, I have to burn calories. And then I went through a period of doing a lot of obstacle course races and like Spartan races and that kind of thing. And during that period, that was when I started working with an eating disorder therapist and kind of really getting into learning about diet culture and moving more towards like fat positivity and fat justice and kind of educating myself there. And I just it became very, very difficult. The running and the OCR stuff. It was very difficult, and in the end I had to take a break. And I remember going on the last run, and when I finished it, I was like, I don't have to fucking run again. Like I finished my last race, and I was like, I don't have to do this. Like I can never go on a run ever again in my whole entire life if I don't have to. And that felt so liberating. And then like a few months later, I had a fight with my roommate, and I was like, fuck this, I'm going for a run. And I went on a run, and it was like the best run of my life. Like it was just like everything I needed. It felt so good. It was so cathartic. I just like ran off all my feelings. And that was after saying I was never going to go for a run again. But like, I don't know, like exercise can be so much more than just a tool to try and punish or change ourselves. You know, it can be such a good way of expressing stress and anger and all of these feelings that we hold inside. So I want people to be able to like reclaim whatever movement feels good.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the ways that I think physical exercise relates to self-care for me is less about the way that my body itself feels or, you know, building strength or anything like that, and more about my ability to process emotions and things that feel kind of clogged up when you're not just kind of moving more and using your body more. And I'll have like a really good workout, do like, you know, a little bit of running, a little bit of like body weight stuff, a little bit of grappling training, whatever, and just kind of feel myself burn through emotions that feel like they've just been clogged in my body somewhere.
Yes. This is a real thing. It's called the stress cycle, and we kind of accumulate all of the stress, and exercise is one of the ways that we can kind of end that cycle, like let those feelings go and like ultimately return to our kind of homeostasis of being chill and happy. It's a really great book. I'm just Googling it really quick so that I make sure I get the author's name right. Here it is. It's called Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle, and it is by Amelia and Emily Nagoski. They're twins. It's very, very good. It taught me a lot about stress and just like a little bit about trauma and just like how that all feels in the body and how important it can be to have a release for that. So sometimes it's going for a run or lifting weights. Sometimes it's crying. Sometimes it's, I don't know, having sex or masturbating, having an orgasm. You know, there's like so many ways to end that response. And yeah, I want exercise to be an option for people instead of everyone being so fucking traumatized by diet culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and lately I've been learning a lot about trauma as well. I recently did a trauma-informed weightlifting course where we talked a lot about how trauma can show up in the body and how we as coaches and movement practitioners can kind of like hold space for our clients who come to us with those traumas, and how we can create a more trauma-informed environment and a more trauma-informed approach. And also how specifically like heavy lifting and weight training, how it can be really healing for a lot of people who do have trauma. It's very interesting stuff.
Yeah, that's something I'm interested about in both strength training and in martial arts as well. That's been something that's been very important to me, and training different people and making sure that people that are coming in with trauma not only are avoiding things that make them go back to that place of being traumatized, but also that I can help them work some of those things out as they come up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it creates this kind of the safe compartment in which to almost like revisit or re-experience those feelings for some people.
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of where being a coach for someone becomes this very sort of personal thing, when you're helping someone kind of go through their trauma and the way that their body is responding to these stimuli.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's so important that when you come to choose a coach, especially if you are someone with a history of trauma, you choose someone who you really connect with. Like, they don't have to necessarily be the most experienced or have the most Instagram followers or like charge the most money. Like, they just really have to be someone who you connect with and you feel that they see you for who you are and they understand what you're trying to do. And those are going to be the people who are best able to support you.
Absolutely.
I like how much we both say absolutely. We both say it a lot.
We absolutely do. We're just going to pivot to our own podcast. That's the Absolutely Podcast.
We should do it. I don't know what we talk about. Just things that we absolutely like. Right. Absolutely hate.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for being with us today on Pride Never Die. Would you like to plug anything, either your Instagram or things like that, where people might be able to follow you?
Sure. I am mostly just active on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is at Stevie Snatches. Yeah, mostly just over there. I'm actually fully booked for live clients, so that's in person and Zoom, as of the recording of this in January 2022. What year is it? Yes, 22. Yep. But I have space for online clients and remote clients, so folks who are interested in getting into weightlifting or powerlifting, or just want to have a structured program to follow with some support from me. I have space for you.
All right. Again, thank you very much for stopping by and talking to me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to Pride Never Die. And thank you for supporting us here at the Southpaw Network. Please, go by the Patreon. If you aren't already a member, it's so much bonus content. You get access to the Discord, which is a lovely community, and it's the only way that we get funding to keep doing things like this. Thank you again, and goodbye.